Welcome to the Raj and Drew Show for entrepreneurs, and I am excited about the topic today. The question that we are going to answer today is, should you become an entrepreneur? Maybe you're sitting there, you're listening to this podcast, you stumbled across it, someone sent it to you, and you're asking yourself, should I become an entrepreneur? I think it's a wonderful question. We can jump into, are entrepreneurs made, or are they born? Is it a skill you learn, or is it something that you just have that you're born with? I know that my mom, when I started a business, my mom said, well, I always knew you were going to do that, son. And I thought, well, I'm 35 years old. I wish you would have told me that you knew I was going to do this my whole life. and she said, no, when you were 8 years old, you'd go and you'd knock on doors and you'd say, hey, I'll wash your car for $5. And then you had a paper route and you'd have to go collect money. And you were always business minded, growing your business, taking on more opportunity and figuring out. I got a moped instead of a bicycle because it was easier, but I didn't have a license yet. So solving the problems and making it more efficient and increasing productivity was something that my brain from a young age did. So I don't know, am I a born entrepreneur, or was that just kind of how I had fun as a kid? We'll find out. We're going to talk to the expert here, Raj. Let's just jump right in. What do you think about entrepreneurship? That question, are entrepreneurs born, or are they created in the lab of life and education and experience? What do you say?
So I would go back and say, basically, both of them are right. There are some people who really have the natural inclination and they have the right motivators that motivate them towards entrepreneurship. But that does not deny that you cannot learn the skills or the competencies and become an entrepreneur. So I would say it is the 80-20. 20% of them are born, which comes naturally to you. Just based on the introduction you gave, you are almost like a born natural entrepreneur. But there are several people that can be learning the skills and become an entrepreneur. So I'll take my example. I don't think I was a born entrepreneur. Since, like your mom was telling you, since my childhood, one of the things my mom inculcated in me is, wherever you go, whatever it is, you know how to solve it and come out of it successful. So I was a problem solver. That is the attitude, and that is how I grew since my childhood. Yeah. And that has helped me to set up my business and become an entrepreneur. But I learned a lot of skills. So I took the route of the corporate world, where I spent over 15 years in the corporate world, learned a lot of things, and then started my business. And now I'm an entrepreneur for the past 15 years. So different ways, different timings. But the biggest part of it, I would say, is they need to be passionate about being independent, passionate about their contribution to the world and to the solution, the product, the service, whatever they're trying to do. That passion has to come. Once you have the passion, you can be made or you can be born.
Yeah, that's great. So once you have that passion, and that's almost kind of like the start with why thing with Simon Sinek, is the why is that passion piece. If you have that passion piece first, and you can get that foundationally, like you said, you can learn the skills. We did a whole episode on the 15 traits of successful leaders. And those are successful entrepreneurial leaders specifically is what we're talking about. And those are traits, those are skill sets, those are competencies, those are behavior styles. And I would encourage listeners to go back and listen to that and really check themselves, see where they rank and see where they need to grow. But skills can be learned. And it's when you have the passion to do it, and you have that vision, you have that ultimate goal that you're working towards, that's the motivation to show up and to learn the skills that need to be learned to go along the way. So, okay, let's say I'm a person out there, I'm listening along. So we've already determined whether you're born or whether you're made. If you're a problem solver, you can use those problem solving skills and become an innovator, which we talked about in the last episode. So we know that anybody can be an entrepreneur. What do I need to ask myself? Because I know that you've had conversations. People have reached out to you and they've said, Raj, I think I want to be an entrepreneur. I think I want to go down this path. And you begin to challenge them with some questions, and you begin to use those coaching skills that you have. And some say, great, I'm jumping all in, I'm going for it. And some say, you know what, now's not the time. I've got some growth that needs to happen. So what process do you bring those people through to kind of help them come to those realizations for themselves?
So I'll go back to the topic of passion first, like the start with why.
Yeah.
But if there are a lot of people who are going and saying, I want to make a lot of money, if their passion is just to make money, I tell them you need to really, really work on it before you jump into become an entrepreneur. But if you are passionate about bringing a solution to your customer or doing something different to solve a problem for some segment of the population, then you have a better chance. Because money is always going to be a result of something you do very, very well.
Yeah.
So that is where the passion and the why comes. If people say, I just want to make money, it might not work out. Or it might work out for a short opportunity. You have an opportunity, you can make money for a year or two, and then you get stuck. So that is the first thing. Whenever you talk about your passion and purpose, you need to look at it from that perspective.
Okay.
And the second part of it is, once you identify your passion, basically, who is the customer that you want to go back and help? When I say customer, I'm talking about a segment of people. Like you and me, Drew, we are very, very passionate about the entrepreneur and the small businesses.
Yes.
We spend predominantly everything that we do is to go back and serve the market.
Absolutely.
So I have my own reasons. You have your own reasons why we have started that. And that is the reason why. And in the market research, you might go back and say, hey, can I validate my product or service? Is this really solving their problem, or it is my assumption? So there is a lot of going back to the field and trying to test some ideas.
Yeah.
So I'll give you one example, which is good from myself, is a friend of mine and I developed a product called Career Coaching for Students.
Yes.
My friend has been spending a lot of time on that. I joined him. My only interest at that time was I wanted to get the right tools for my kids because my daughter was in high school. So I spent with him, we spent 20-30% of my contribution, but predominantly it was my friend who was passionate about it.
Yeah.
We built a product which was outstanding. But when we went back to the field, at least when I went back to the field and spoke to over 50, 60, 70 parents, they did see the value of it. So I was passionate about it. It made a big, big influence on the success of my kids today. All the friends' kids and everybody else I have done. So it was a great product, great value, but sometimes the market is not ready for it.
Yeah.
That is the market research comes.
That's so good. Yeah. I remember hearing Gary Vee talk about selling, and he said, selling became really easy when I stopped trying to sell to people that weren't interested. And that's that is the ultimate thing. If there's no perceived value, and let's say that your product was, $1,000, and people go, no, I'd rather spend $20,000 a year on a college education than $1,000 to determine what education I should get, right? And there's a gap with perceived value there. But if anybody would step back for a moment and say, maybe before I spend the $20,000 a year, we should make sure we're spending it on the right topics to study and the right interests. And we really think through that process on the front end, just like we're doing right now with becoming an entrepreneur. Think about it on the front end. Don't just jump in and spend a bunch of money and buy some program on how to set up your entrepreneurial business. Stop for a moment, think about it. You'll do much better if you slow down and think about what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go right now, than if you jump right in. So that perceived value thing is very interesting. And that is a huge frustration, I think, for entrepreneurs, because they can see the value, they can see probably ahead of many people, and maybe this product will come resurface another 5 years from now, Raj, I don't know. But
maybe you're right. Maybe you're right.
And so, but the entrepreneur can see ahead that they're meeting a need. But if the perception isn't there and it cannot, the tide can't be turned, then you might have to shelf it for a while to be looked at in the future. Is that kind of how you would approach that?
Yes. So basically, if you look at the first point was passion and purpose. The second one was doing the market research, understanding which segment is it really being accepted or not. Sometimes it can be accepted with a few tweaks. Sometimes you may have to go back and really change everything else. And then the next piece of it is really going back and looking at it and coming with a plan. It is almost, some people call it a business plan. whatever it is, as long as thinking about their goals, their finances, and the support system. Those are the three critical things they need to look at it as a business plan and really understand basically what I need to do, what I need to get accomplished.
Yeah.
And that way they can go back and say, I need a budget and this is what I'm going to do. And these are some of the steps I do. Sorry, go ahead.
No. You were mid-sentence. I apologize. Maybe a tweak here for this product that you have. You were going to the individual families and trying to sell it. I wonder if you could take a product like this and you could package it and you could sell it as a program to colleges or to professors, as this is an introductory course that every freshman goes through, and they buy the book and they buy the kit, and then the instructor walks them through the process of everything that's in your program. I don't know. Is that something that crossed your mind? Had you guys ever tried that or considered that?
So Drew, my partner, basically Carl Nielsen, he's working with the University of Texas system, and one of the university school system has taken that and they're working with that as a pilot as we speak. They're going back and offering it.
Yeah. And that's one of those things where you're not getting the one-on-one, or you're not doing it yourself, but you can do it on such a large mass scale that, for one, it could be extremely beneficial to the marketplace, to students. I know that that's a huge success factor working in a institution of higher education now. That is a big focal point, is how do we set them up for success, get them clear on what they're trying to do early on, so that they can be successful and complete the process of their education, and it's purposeful, not just to have a degree to hang on the wall, but it actually is useful and moves them in a place where their strengths and skill sets are maximized. So awesome. Well, great. I'm glad that you guys are already piloting that.
Yeah, they're piloting, and the freshmen coming into one of the university school systems in Texas, freshmen, this is one of the critical required courses for them right now. So that way, in the freshman year, they're looking at everything else so that they can make their next 3 years much more fruitful and aligned with what their personal goals and strengths work out to be.
That's great. That's fantastic.
And basically,
awesome. Okay, I slowed you down. Jump back in there.
So once you go back and understand your business plan, this is one thing I want to tell a lot of people who are early stage entrepreneurs, is basically the funding piece of it. So whatever business you have, it can be self-funded or you raise money. The ideal situation is basically have some budget and bootstrap yourself so that you don't need funding until you prove it. Because the more you can go back and get the momentum, the higher the valuation is for you. You don't want to give away equity very, very early in the game. And for somebody who is moving from a corporate life like me, I was a corporate guy for a long time before I started my business. So one of the things we thought about, and I was so glad I got a mentor, I'll talk about that in a minute, is I went back and said, you know what, this is a new business. There is going to be a lot of uncertainty, because entrepreneur's life is a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of businesses that don't survive past 4 or 5 years. And I was not sure what would be the revenue generation in the first couple of years. So I created a financial system behind me so that it does not affect my family for 2 years. So I planned it up for the few years and made sure that family is taken care of. Even if I have zero revenue for 2 years, I was okay with it.
Yeah.
And to be planned, because of the recession in 2008, it happened that for 3 years, we really did not get much revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And that
I was going to say that's perfect that you planned in that way, because of when you started, you didn't know, many people didn't know that recession was going to happen. And so it comes in right as you're starting your business, which is huge, but that's something that we have to always be prepared for. Who would have known the pandemic was going to come? We didn't, right? And so you have to be prepared, and then you have to pivot and you have to make all these changes. But I think it's so wise, and anybody out there, if you have a good situation right now, you're in a job, don't jump at some promises or some IOUs or some, oh yeah, we'll bring you in to do business. You and I have both had countless conversations where people say, yeah, I want to bring you in to work with my company. And then they never answer your phone calls again,
Yes.
and
Yes.
those, you can't build a business on IOUs. You really need to, and I was having this conversation yesterday with a person that's in that exact situation. They have a business, they have a fantastic product, but we really sat down and said, okay, let's break it down. What are you making an hour with how much time it takes you, how much it costs, your product costs, what's your profit after all expenses, and then what does that break down to an hour? Okay, how many hours do you have to work to make that thing work? And right now, if you're getting 5 hours a week, that ain't going to pay the bills. It's exciting, it's awesome, you're able to do that, but you can do 5 hours while working a full-time job. That's not a problem at all. Or you can bring on people and actually build a business before you step out onto your own. And the biggest thing would be predictable income stream. And so getting some sort of marketing system out there, or something in place so that you have predictability in that revenue stream, so that you can make that step eventually. I don't know. What do you think about that? Is that wise counsel to say there needs to be some predictability in your revenue stream before you launch out there, or is that being too cautious?
No, Drew, basically that becomes on the personal risk profile of the individual who is starting the business.
Okay.
Because there are some people that are willing to take the risk, because I wanted to jump all in.
Yeah.
So I was comfortable. I created the foundation for myself for 2 years, and then I jumped in. But some people cannot do that. They might not be comfortable doing that. For them, they can start something on the side. But the biggest part of it, what you are talking about, is really understanding the calculation piece of it. People go back and say, hey, you need to look at the value you're offering and price according to it. But when you're moving up from a corporate, one of the basic way I always talk to my clients is this: if you're looking at it as an hourly rate, we have 2,000 hours in a working year. If you're working for a corporate, they're 2080, but you get 2 weeks of vacation. So it is 2,000 hours of working. In an entrepreneur, and let us say you're making 100,000 a year. So that comes to $50 per hour.
Okay.
So people jump into that saying that, okay, if I charge them $50, I'm going to be okay. But they don't realize there is sales, there is operation, there is so many other functions they need to do, which will take approximately 1,100 hours of your time out of the 2,000.
That's so good.
So now you have only 900 hours of revenue generation.
Yeah.
And then out of the 900 hours, you go back and take at least 100, 200. Let us say it is a service industry, coaching, consulting, training. Your overhead is low, but there is still overhead.
Yeah.
So out of the 900, you need to go back and see approximately how much is my overhead. So that will take away another 100 or 200 hours of your billing for overhead. So you're left with about 700 basically hours in a year to really generate money for your bottom line, to live, for your expenditure, profit, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So if you want to make 100,000, now divide that 100,000 by 70, and that should be the minimum you need to be charging people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I was like, don't ask me to do the math.
No, I understand. But that is what you need to do. So approximately they need to charge $125 to go back and make $100,000 a year as an entrepreneur. And I talk to people, and immediately it's an eye-opening for a lot of people. I have at least several double-digit examples where people opened up their eyes and say, Raj, I don't think I'm ready to do that. I said, fine. At least you realize that, and then you can come up with a plan over the next 12 months, 18 months, whenever you're ready.
100%. I think that's so the breakdown, and you have to account for everything. As we were just going through the process, we thought we had landed on a number, and then I said, wait a second, where you're selling your product, did you have to pay for that booth? Oh yeah. Okay. That cost X. Well, that just cut out like 35% of what we thought was profit was that fee. And now you go back and you go, okay, wow, this is substantially less than what I initially thought I was going to make. But that's real life. And if you find that out after you've already jumped into entrepreneurship, then that's tough. And sure, you can scrape by and maybe you'll make it, but we're trying to set you up for success and make sure that you've thought through the entire process. And then you make, like you said, you make the best decision for yourself based on real factors, not on your imagination or pipe dreams. And so, okay, so this is that was the tough love section of the podcast today.
Yes.
What else do you got for us as we're going through this process? We're thinking about our passion. We're thinking about, what is that kind of minimum viable product that we can bring to market? Yes. What do we need to charge? How many hours can we actually work if we have a service? How many, if we have a cake company, how many cakes do we need to sell to cover our overhead? Do we do a food truck? Do we sell them out of our house? Do we get a location? We're thinking through all of these things. Where are we getting capital? You said the ideal is to save up some money and then bootstrap it from there. And let's explain bootstrapping. That is making your way through without other help. It's selling enough to provide to continue to grow and build your business. So that's the recap of where we're at so far.
Yes.
What next, Raj?
So the next one is, because as an entrepreneur, it is very, very lonely there. When you're in a work, you have peers, you have bosses, you have a community of people to work with and discuss. As an entrepreneur, it becomes very lonely. So definitely develop a nice mastermind or a strong team or whoever it is. They can be your employees, partners, advisors, any of those things, but have an ecosystem around you where you can brainstorm ideas. Like Drew, you and me, we have been having a mastermind for over 5 years now. So we have learned a lot from each other, helping each other out, brainstorming ideas, doing things. And that is missing from a lot of people. Yeah. So that is the next one is you have a good team around you to work with. And especially from a finance perspective, from a taxes perspective, if you have some good advisors, a legal person is very important, a tax advisor is very important, a CPA is very important. So those are the people that will at least help you and guide you what are the right things to do. If you have a CPA firm, you don't need that, but you need the other aspects. You will need a marketing guy and somebody else.
Yeah, it's funny. My wife is an accountant, and so she does all that for us. She sets it up. So, the taxes are paid on a regular cadence instead of kind of one big tax bill at the end. I like that. It's funny because when I was launching out to start my own business, everybody has an opinion and they want to share their experience with you and they're trying to encourage you or just protect you, whatever the case is. But I had a mentor who, before I knew him, had started a business, and he said, just be careful because, after the first or second year, we had to shut it down because the tax bill was so high. And I thought, then you're doing something wrong. You either need to set aside, what is that? I think 25-30% is what people would advise you to set aside for taxes. And, set that aside so that you have it at the end of the year, or set it up in a way where you can pay taxes on a regular cadence to make sure that it's out of sight, out of mind. You've done it. You're not going to get some big tax bill at the end of the year. But that apparently that can shut people down, and that can ruin a business because they just didn't think, because they're used to working for someone. And if you're accustomed to working for someone, you get a paycheck and they take the taxes out and they do all that for you, and you get the chunk at the end, and you're okay with that. And if you think that whatever profit is made off of a certain service that you offer or a product that you offer, that's all just goes in your bank account for you to spend on your car payment and everything else, you're mistaken. You have to take money out for taxes because the IRS will get that money from you.
Yes, definitely. There is no two ways about it. And that's the reason why the business plan and the financial plan is so critical. Because that's one of the things they need to go back. And every entrepreneur, I say, get a business advisor or a CPA, financial advisor to work with. You're very fortunate that your wife helps you with that and you have the skill in-house. But 90% of the people are not that lucky.
I know. Yeah. So, but there are programs out there. I know in Fort Worth, we have entrepreneur funds, and we have different groups that many times they're free. So I would look into them in your specific area. You may not qualify for them based on, all the different numbers, but go check them out. There are different ones available that you can get. Obviously, you have training programs, masterminds, things that help out people in this process, Raj, of really building out what it means to be an entrepreneur, walking through these steps, understanding their skills, everything we talk about on this podcast. You have a program that people can join into and participate. But there are programs out there that are absolutely free that you can go to in your city, if you live in a larger city, at least. And they can help you out with that and give you some answers, or at least point you in the direction of local resources for everything that you're talking about, Raj. Business advisor, CPA coach, and tax coach, all that kind of stuff.
Very, very true. So once we go through that, the next one is focusing on the customer. And here, when we go back and say is you're focusing on solving problems for your customer. When I say customer, it is a segment of customers. It is not one person. So generally, when you have a product or service, you identify a segment of the population and try to solve their problems or fulfill their needs. So that is always constantly communicating with them, making sure you're providing outstanding service and constantly getting the feedback so that you can go back and modify, update, change, pivot to different services that can help that segment piece of it. And especially the early entrepreneurs, they might think that the whole world, like I'll take an example, a coach, right? The coach can go back and serve anybody. But if you go back and try to serve everybody, then you're serving nobody. So for us, especially for me and you, we are focused on the small business and the entrepreneurs. The same skills are applicable to the big corporations as well with the modification, but we really want to go back into the niche, learn from them and provide them the best value. So that is where we are adding value, because our experiences with every client is enhancing so much. So the next client will get a lot more value than the previous client.
Yes, absolutely. And in the stage, the challenges that a small business has, the challenge that the businesses that we work with, that they have, they're predictable, right? We a couple of weeks ago went through the stages of growth. There's a reason why you have a training all around the different stages of growth that an organization goes through, is because they're predictable. And I know for myself, people start to get to that 50 to 150, somewhere in that range. They realize, now some of them realize it earlier and some realize it later, but they realize, wow, we need to get some more processes in place. And I don't remember what stage of growth that was in, but that is part of the growth process, is recognizing we need to get some more systems in place and processes in place so that we can onboard more people and they can get going more, they can become productive contributors much more efficiently. And that happens through process, because we figured out some things at a certain point. And so we see that every day with small businesses. They're either at the front end, the middle, or they've just overcome that challenge in their business. Whereas a massive company has already written all the processes. They've got the procedures. Maybe they're tweaking them. Maybe they're changing their onboarding system or their orientation a little bit, but they have something in place for everything along the way. And that's just a different type of problem. And that's why, to your point, you've got to niche down. You've got to figure out who is that person you're going to serve and how can you help them. Maybe you've always been in small businesses, so you understand that. Maybe like yourself, you always did consulting with small businesses, so you understood, you had a passion for it. And that is really, that is key, because you want to be able to create predictable, repeatable products or services that your ideal customer is looking for. And so that's really the point of that. And then, like you said, you're going to be seen as the expert now in that certain area, which makes you more desirable.
Exactly. And Drew, what you're referring to was a stage 4 company up to 55 employees. And there, basically, that's a very, very important transition in an entrepreneur's life or a journey. See, stage 1, 2, and 3, up to 34, 35 employees is entrepreneur focused. So the entrepreneur can really go back and work with everybody else. But it comes to a point once you get to stage 4, it has to become a professional company. So it moves away from an entrepreneur focused to a company focused organization. That is the reason why they need the processes. That is the reason why they need to bring in some experienced people who have been there and done that to establish that.
Yeah.
That is the reason why they grow much faster when they do that very well. So transitioning from stage 3 to 4 is one of the toughest based on over 1,300 companies of information and research I have seen.
Wow. That's interesting. And it's that mindset shift that has to take place there. Okay. So good. So good. All right. I interrupted you again, so keep going.
No, so, but here, Drew, the next one is the most important one. Everybody is very optimistic when they start. They have a passion, they have a lot of energy and everything else. But every entrepreneur needs to remember 2 things. One is they need to be very, very resilient because setbacks do happen. And they need to be adaptable because there are so many assumptions they make when they enter, but the reality is slightly different. They need to be changing and adapting at the same time. So resiliency and adaptability are 2 very, very critical for them at this stage, because setbacks are part of life in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is the reason why they need to have those 2 things and need to develop a lot of resiliency and be comfortable with that piece of it. That's the reason why I say, if you're risk averse, entrepreneurship is not for you.
That's good. That is very wise. And once again, we're having this podcast episode because we want to see more people enter entrepreneurship. We want to see more people jump in, but we want you to do it understanding what it entails on the front end. Because, for myself, I just kind of jumped in my situation. I jumped all in and I probably made every single mistake you could make, Raj, along the way. And so what do? You have to go back, you have to regroup, and you have to say, okay, let's hit the reset button and start over and put together a different plan, a better plan. And I was one of those people. I didn't want to niche down. Because it feels like you're cutting things off. It feels like you're cutting off an arm, Well, if I say I don't serve that client, well, then I'm leaving all that out there. And maybe I kind of like working with those types of people. But when you do that, you're really not focusing, and then you can't. You can work with the best marketers in the world, but if you aren't focused and you don't know who you're focusing on, a marketer can't help you. A team of people can't help you because it's a scattered shotgun approach to business. And I think smaller, tighter, more strategic, focused effort, kind of like the magnifying glass, is going to produce a greater harvest, a greater success. And if we just look at the Amazon example, we look at Jeff Bezos. He was about selling books online. That was it. He had one focus. And I don't know, I wasn't in his head. I haven't read his life story, but I don't know if he always envisioned in his mind that Amazon would grow to what it is today. But I doubt that he thought that they would be one of the largest cloud-based, organizations that has all this cloud space they sell, and everything else that they do, deliveries, in a couple hours. Did he ever think they would get there? I don't know. I think he was selling books online. And what's crazy is I've bought my books on Amazon for 10 years plus, 15 years, maybe 12 years, somewhere in there, exclusively on Amazon. And I went through one of their competitors recently, and it was the clunkiest process. It took a week to get the book. It wasn't easy, and it was much more expensive.
Yes.
And so, there's something to, you got to make it easy on the customer to buy your service, get your goods. You got to make it easy for them to pay you. You've got to make it easy for them to understand the process that you're leading them through. And if you start with a very focused effort, later on you can branch out and maybe you'll become the Amazon of cakes and pies or whatever. But right now, focus, niche down, and get very good at the one thing that you do. And I think you've mentioned
Yes.
that in other episodes.
Yes.
Offer one or two services.
Exactly, Drew. So this is a great example for everybody to follow. Is that basically Bezos' example is he started with books. So every entrepreneur, based on the success people versus not so successful people, is they only focused on maybe 2 or 3, no more than 3. When you start a business, just look at if you are one, great. All of your focus is on one product. If not, you want to offer 2 or 3, that is perfectly fine. But never go back and focus on more than 3 products initially. 3 products, 3 services, whatever business you are. And that is very true. And 2, Jeff Bezos, again, I read a lot about Jeff Bezos, but I was never with him or anything. But if you look at it, every time you reach a mile, you reflect on what your learnings are, you're looking at your customers and saying, what else can I serve them with? And you're tweaking and growing every single time. I mean, he would have never imagined that he would get into web services when he started thinking about books. But the web services was a requirement because he wanted all of his services to be on the web to make it very efficient. So he had to develop the expertise in-house. So once I become an expert for my in-house, why can't I offer it to somebody else? That is a natural progression.
Yeah.
And that must have been the thought process. I don't know how they did it, what their strategy was, but if I'm looking at it from an outsider, that would be a natural progression.
Yeah, and you can see that same idea with Apple. They had the Macintosh computer for a long time. They just had the little box computer, and that was their thing. And now you look, and Apple has, they've got all these products, from headphones to selling music online and innovating in that way, to countless other things that they do. But that happens over time, and a long time. Those companies have been around for quite a while. Tesla, they had the one model. I think it was the S model or something like that was the initial car that they had, and that's what they rolled out. And then you begin to add on from there. And so I think it's very wise to start out with that 1, 2, 3 services that you offer, be really good at that. And then nobody cares if, you call yourself a burger joint, but later you offer chicken strips, nobody cares,
Exactly.
Get good at the burgers and then offer the chicken strips later on your menu to add on. No one's going to fault you for that. So, okay. Fantastic. What else do you have for us?
So the next progression, I would say, is learning from others. And what I mean that is there are 3 different distinct people you need to have as an entrepreneur. One is have some mentors. Mentors are the people who have been there, who have done that, who can share their experiences and really help you to come along. So learn from others' mistakes rather than be doing the same mistakes. The second one is trying to get some advisors and coaches. They might have not been entrepreneurs, but they give you a very different perspective, and they really help you to realize and reflect what is working, what is not working, and move you along. And the third group, where a lot of people don't talk about, is who is a champion for you and your organization. So these are some people who are highly influential, who are really impressed with your product or service and with you, and they can go back and help you to get into your customer base or company or corporations. So they can go back and set a path for you to be successful in the initial stages. So those 3 things, if you identify those 3 things throughout the 3 different groups of people to help you, then the path to success is faster and with less setbacks.
Yeah. That's good.
So
that's good.
And last but not the least, I would say is continuously learn and improve. I use the word CANI, C-A-N-I, continuous and never-ending improvement. That should be ingrained in every single entrepreneur. Can I? And if you can go back and look at it, they're always looking at it. Feedback from the customers, feedback from their product, feedback from their services, talking to their mentors. Every single opportunity they have something as a feedback coming. Once the feedback is coming, it is up to them to say, I'm going to change it or I'm not going to change it. But at least they're being aware of what is happening in the market and what feedback they're getting. And based on that, they can go back and have their business plan modified or their strategies developed with new products, new services, whatever they want to do.
Well, and that really, we've mentioned this before, that separates the entrepreneur from the small business owner, because the small business owner gets to a point and they want to maintain profits. They want to kind of just go into that maintenance mode with the organization. They're not really interested in innovating, but we discussed it before, grow or die. You've got to continue to grow your business, or it doesn't, just because you have a business and you have a segment of the market doesn't mean that everything else stays stagnant, and that other people aren't coming up and trying to take over that. A great example is the taxi services, right? The taxi industry, Uber and Lyft have come along and said, you know what, we're going to disrupt this. There's an easier way. You don't have to remember a phone number. You just have an app. The payment method is very easy. And, we can make this process much more, lower the threshold of entry for people to make extra money as well. And you look at all those things and you say, that is an example of, I think, the taxi services just getting very complacent, getting very comfortable in that we own this industry. Nobody will ever take it over. It is what it is. It's never going to change. And when you begin to think that way, for one, you've already stopped learning. You're not listening to feedback. You're not listening to the clients, and you're just saying, take it or leave it. Take what I offer, or go, catch a bus. And that is not the entrepreneur mindset, and that is not how you're going to continue to stay on top and continue to build your business and really affect change in the marketplace. And
Drew, just to add on to that, because I live close to New York City, I can see a significant difference in the quality of the taxis and the people and the taxi drivers, how they behave with you before Uber versus after Uber. Because now, because of the competition, they have become much more polite. They maintain their vehicles much better. They're much cleaner, much safer. And that was a huge difference since Uber has come. Because now people are going to Uber. I don't want a yellow cab because they were rude in the past.
Yeah.
Because they were the only game in town.
Yeah, that's why competition is good too, because it challenges us to continue to serve the customer better, whether it's cheaper, faster, or just an overall better experience, better product that we offer. And that's why competition is the best way to go.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, what are your closing thoughts? What's your closing encouragement or challenge to the entrepreneurs to be, or maybe the folks that are entrepreneurs, they're already engaged in it, they already jumped, and they're kind of realizing these things along the way, and they're going, oh, I get that. I didn't know about that. I'm going to prepare for that. What are your kind of final thoughts for them today?
So, Drew, I first want to go back and just summarize the 9 points we discussed today, just to go back and give them a quick summary.
Yes.
The first thing is identify your passion and purpose. That is the number one piece of it. Then do some market research, understand your clients, see how they are going to respond to your product or service. Then the third is develop a business plan. The fourth point of it is your financial planning, securing the funding, financial requirement. All of that would be the fourth piece of it. The fifth piece is trying to build a nice team, your CPA, your employees, marketer, whatever that is required for you to be there. You need to have a strong team. And then number 6 is put a lot of focus on your customer, their needs, the feedback about the products and services, all of those things. And the next one is setbacks are very common. So be very resilient and be adaptable. And then number 8, learn from others, get a champion, get a mentor, get a coach. And last but not the least is continuously learn and improve.
So good. That's great. That's a fantastic recap. I love that. Thank you, Raj. Thank you for sharing all that information with us today. I know that I'm benefiting from it. I've benefited from these conversations over the last 5 years with you. And I know that the folks that are listening are going to benefit from this. And we hope, send us an email, let us know. Our contact information is below. Connect with us on LinkedIn. Don't just follow us, connect with us. We want to connect with you. Let's have a conversation. Send us a message. We want to know where you're at in the entrepreneurial journey. We want to know what your challenges are. We want to create content around solutions for those challenges. And we're just excited for you. We want to cheerlead you along the way and encourage you along the way in your entrepreneurial journey. And so with that, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you on the next one. Raj, I hope you have an awesome week.
You too, Drew. Thank you very much.